OpenAI's next model just leaked itself, not through a blurry screenshot, not through some random account posting a fake benchmark, through something much louder. OpenAI named it, OpenAI showed what it can do, and then OpenAI slowed part of its own frontier training because the model might be too dangerous to handle the normal way. That is the part everyone is missing. The biggest clue that GPT-6 is getting close is not that somebody found a hidden model name in a menu, it is that OpenAI is already treating Astra like a model that changes the rules. 10 hard math results, roughly $2,000 of solution tokens, machine-checked proofs, a possible critical cyber threshold, a 2-week pause on deployment training, and a largest frontier run still on hold. That is not normal product teasing. That is a company quietly saying, the next thing is powerful enough that the release process itself had to change. So yes, the internet is calling this GPT-6. OpenAI has not officially called it GPT-6, and honestly, that almost does not matter. Because if Astra ships as GPT-6, GPT 5.7, or some weird new model family, the important part is the same. OpenAI is no longer showing us a smarter chatbot. It is showing us the first real outline of a research agent that can work for a long time, prove things, write code, coordinate tools, and possibly cross cyber lines that previous public models did not cross. And that is why this is the most important OpenAI leak of the year. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this. Now back to the video. Let us get the annoying part out of the way first. There is no official GPT-6 launch date. There is no public GPT-6 model card. There is no OpenAI blog post that says, congratulations, GPT-6 arrives tomorrow. Please update your apps and panic responsibly. If somebody tells you that part is confirmed, they are selling you smoke. But the mistake is going too far in the other direction. Some people hear not confirmed and immediately act like the whole thing is fake. I think that is wrong, because Astra is not just a rumor anymore. OpenAI used the name, OpenAI called it an upcoming model, then OpenAI called it the next major model in a research release about 10 advances in mathematics and theoretical computer science. That is a completely different category of clue. Most model rumors are vapor. Astra is now a public breadcrumb from OpenAI itself. The mystery is not whether Astra exists, the mystery is what Astra becomes when it leaves the lab. Does it become GPT-6? Does it become GPT 5.7? Does OpenAI split it into one model for normal users and another model for researchers, agents, and enterprise customers? That is the real question. And my opinion is this. If Astra is as strange as the early signals suggest, OpenAI would be almost foolish to ship it like a normal chatbot update. ChatGPT can already answer questions. Codex can already work on code. Deep research can already gather information. The next leap is not another slightly nicer paragraph. The next leap is a model that can hold a difficult objective, use tools, split work, verify pieces, and keep going without falling apart after the first clever sentence. That is why Astra matters. It points at the next interface, not chat. Delegation on August 1st. OpenAI published something that looked boring at first glance and explosive on the second. The title was about 10 advances in mathematics and theoretical computer science. That sounds like the kind of thing most developers scroll past because it has too many serious words in one sentence, but buried inside it was the line that changed the whole Astra rumor cycle. OpenAI said the results were achieved by an internal version of Astra, its next major model. That is the sentence. Not a fan theory, not a marketplace listing, not a hallucinated benchmark table. OpenAI said it. And the results were not tiny demo puzzles. They were in areas like high-dimensional sphere packing, coding theory, arithmetic circuit complexity, group theory, operator algebras, quantum complexity, lattice cryptography, and extremal combinatorics. You do not need to understand every field on that list for the signal to matter. The signal is that OpenAI chose open research problems as a showcase that is aggressive, because normal benchmarks are controlled little arenas. Math research is not like that. There is no multiple choice answer hidden behind the curtain. There is no easy leaderboard where you can grind until the number moves. If the claim survives scrutiny, it means the model was not just retrieving an answer, it was producing arguments, and OpenAI added a number that is almost too sharp to ignore. It said the total number of tokens needed to find the solutions would cost roughly $2,000 at sole API rates, $2,000 for 10 candidate advances on long-standing problems. Now, do not turn that into the stupid version. It does not mean every developer can spend $200 and buy a theorem. It does not include the cost of training Astra. It does not include all the human work around choosing problems, preparing manuscripts, checking claims, and turning messy reasoning into something publishable. It does not mean the mathematical community has already stamped every result as history. But even with all of those caveats, the number is insane, because the marginal cost of the successful reasoning is the thing OpenAI wants you to notice. If that number is even directionally honest, the future of research starts to look very different. Not because the model replaces mathematicians overnight. That is the lazy headline. The sharper point is that the bottleneck moves. It moves from can anyone find a path to can experts verify the path, understand it, extend it, and trust the system enough to use it again. That is a totally different world, and it is the same world developers are walking into with code. The model writes more, so verification becomes more important. The model proposes bigger changes, so testing becomes more important. The model can work across more files and tools, so containment becomes more important. That is the Astra pattern. It is not just smarter, it makes the rest of the workflow more serious. The flashiest headline is 10 results. The more important part is Lean certificate. Lean is a proof assistant. In plain English, it is a system where proof has to be written in a form a computer can check step by step. That matters because AI math claims usually have a trust problem. It can hide a mistake in the one step nobody wants to inspect, and if the field is obscure enough, most people cannot tell the difference between a breakthrough and a very confident fog machine. Lean changes the shape of the claim. It does not magically prove the product is ready. It does not settle every question about novelty, attribution, assumptions, or whether the formal statement perfectly matches the original human problem, but it does remove a massive chunk of the usual nonsense, either the formal proof checks or it does not. That is why I think this was a smarter announcement than a benchmark chart. Benchmarks are easy to argue about. Was the data contaminated? Was the prompt tuned? Did the model see the problem before? Did the test actually measure real work? With formal proof certificates, the argument becomes more inspectable. You can still debate the meaning, you can still debate the framing, but the actual proof object is not just vibes. That is the future OpenAI is trying to sell. Not trust our model because it sounds smart. Trust the workflow because the model produces artifacts that can be checked. And if you're a developer, that should hit uncomfortably close to home because the same thing is coming for code. The model that wins will not write the prettiest answer. It will write the code, run the tests, read the failure, patch the right file, explain the risk, and leave behind evidence you can inspect. That is the model developers will actually pay for. Not the chatbot with the best personality, not the model that wins a screenshot war on social media. The model that can be trusted with a messy objective and a real repo. That is why Astra feels bigger than a normal upgrade. OpenAI is showing the verification story before the product story. That usually means the product story is going to be about agents. Then 6 days later, OpenAI published a second clue, and this one was even stranger. On August 7th, OpenAI said its latest internal evaluations of Astra showed significant advancements in agentic coding and cybersecurity. Not just coding agentic coding. That word matters. It means the model is not only answering programming questions, it is operating through actions. Tools, code execution, possibly longer tasks. The kind of work where a model can affect an environment instead of just describing one. OpenAI said it could not rule out that Astra had reached the critical cybersecurity capability level under its preparedness framework. That is not a normal marketing phrase. Under that framework, critical cyber capability means a model may be able to identify and develop functional zero-day exploits in many hardened real-world critical systems without human intervention, or devise and execute end-to-end novel strategies for attacks against hardened targets from a high-level goal. That is a terrifying sentence. And again, do not flatten it into hype slop. OpenAI did not say Astra definitely has every critical cyber capability. It said the preliminary evidence was strong enough that they could not rule it out. That is different, but it is still huge, because OpenAI also said previous models, including GPT 5.6 Sol, had been evaluated at high, not critical. So the implied direction is obvious, something changed. The public flagship was high, Astra might be critical. If you're trying to read release tea leaves, that is not a small clue, that is a flare. It says Astra is enough of a jump that OpenAI had to change how it handles the model internally. And this is where my take gets a bit contradictory. The safety news makes Astra feel closer and farther away at the same time. Closer. Because OpenAI is naming it, evaluating it, briefing around it, publishing results from it, and preparing infrastructure around it. That does not feel like a model from some distant research fog. It feels like a model moving through the release machine, but farther away because the model may be powerful enough that the old release machine is not acceptable anymore. So if you're waiting for a date, you might be asking the wrong question. The better question is, what has to be built around Astra before OpenAI is willing to give it to people? Because the answer may be the product on August 18th. OpenAI made the situation even clearer. It said 2 developments had increased urgency around monitoring, alignment, and containment. One was the OpenAI and Hugging Face incident. The other was preliminary evidence that Astra may meet the critical cybersecurity threshold. Now, important distinction, OpenAI has said Astra was not involved in exploiting Hugging Face. So do not mash those 2 stories together as if Astra escaped a sandbox. That is not what OpenAI said, but the timing still matters. OpenAI is looking at frontier models that can use tools, execute code, access environments, and produce more powerful cyber behavior. Then it looks at Astra. Then it slows the pace of scaling. That is the story. OpenAI said it temporarily paused reinforcement learning training on the latest models intended for deployment for 2 weeks while it hardened and red-teamed research environments and expanded monitoring. It also said its largest planned frontier reinforcement learning run remains on hold. That is not a normal pre-launch blog post. That is not, we are excited to announce faster responses and nicer charts. That is the company saying the models are moving fast enough that the lab has to upgrade the walls while the engine is still running. This is why the release speculation is so interesting. People want to know whether GPT-6 is coming next week. I want to know what OpenAI thinks it needs to wrap around the model before launch. Because if Astra is a long horizon agent model, the dangerous part is not only what it knows, it is what it can do. A normal chatbot can tell you a bad idea. An agent can try things. It can run commands. It can use a browser. It can call tools. It can chain actions across time. That is where the risk changes. And it is also where the usefulness explodes. The same ability that helps a defender find vulnerabilities can help an attacker move faster. The same ability that helps a coding agent fix a messy repo can help a malicious agent navigate systems. The same ability that lets a research agent pursue a hard theorem can let it pursue a bad objective for longer than you expected. That is the uncomfortable truth. Astra is exciting for exactly the same reason. It is hard to release. The internet wants a clean label. GPT-6, nice and simple. New number goes up. Everyone argues about benchmarks for 48 hours, then developers quietly decide whether it is worth the bill. But OpenAI might not give us that clean story. Reporting around Astra has suggested OpenAI is preparing a new model family and has not settled whether it would be branded as GPT-6 or as another GPT-5 series model. That uncertainty makes sense because model naming is now marketing, safety, enterprise packaging, and expectation management all at once. If OpenAI calls it GPT-6, people expect a broad jump everywhere. Better chat, better code, better reasoning, better agents, better multimodal, better price somehow. Because users always want magic and discounts in the same box. But if the real jump is more specific, especially around long-running agentic work, OpenAI may want a different label. Astra might be a model family next to Sol, Terra, and Luna. It might be a research tier. It might be a controlled release for government, enterprise, security, and science before ordinary ChatGPT users ever touch the most capable version. And I know that sounds less fun than GPT-6 drops tomorrow, but it is probably closer to how powerful models are going to ship now. The world where everyone gets the full frontier model in a chat box on day one may be ending. Not because OpenAI hates consumers, because the product surface is becoming part of the safety system. Who gets tool access? What tools can the model call? Can it reach the internet? Can it execute code? Can it run for hours? Can it coordinate multiple agents? Can it inspect its own chain of work? Can monitors interrupt it? Those questions matter more than a model picker label. So if Astra becomes GPT-6, the number will get the headlines. But if Astra ships under a different name, do not miss the point. The capability line may still have moved. The release shape may just be more controlled. Here's the strongest version of my take. If Astra is real in the way OpenAI's posts imply, the important product will not be ChatGPT answering a prompt. It will be OpenAI giving people a worker, not a better autocomplete, a worker. That sounds dramatic, but look at the clues. 10 research results require long chains of reasoning. Lean formalization requires producing checkable artifacts. Cyber evaluations involve tool use, code execution, and real operational behavior. OpenAI's monitoring post talks about long-running sessions, internal coding agents, tool actions, unauthorized access, data theft, and destructive behavior. That is agent language. That is not ordinary chat language. And for developers, this is a part that matters tomorrow morning. Your coding workflow is already shifting away from ask a model for a function toward give an agent an issue. The old workflow was explain the problem, get a code block, paste it, pray. The new workflow is give the agent a repo, give it tests, give it permission boundaries, let it inspect, let it patch, let it verify, then review the evidence. Astra looks like it belongs to the second world. That is why I think the people obsessing over whether it is GPT-6 are slightly missing the bigger change. The model name is the wrapper. The real shift is that frontier AI is becoming operational. It is moving from conversation to action, from answer to artifact, from one turn to long horizon work, from please explain this bug to find it, fix it, test it, and show me the proof. That is a much bigger deal than a benchmark win. And it also means most people will use it badly. They will open the new model, ask it a normal question, get a slightly better answer, and say the hype was fake. That is exactly backwards. If Astra is built for long work, judging it by one chat answer is like judging a compiler by whether it writes a nice comment. The power is in the task loop, the context, the tools, the verification, the ability to keep state across a job. If OpenAI nails that, this is not just a better ChatGPT, it is a new default worker for software. Now for the part that makes the hype uncomfortable. If Astra is this capable, it will probably be annoying. Restricted, monitored rate, limited, maybe split across tiers, maybe available first to a tiny set of researchers, security partners, enterprise customers, or government-approved testing groups. And a lot of developers are going to hate that because we want the magic button. We want the strongest model in the dropdown. We want full tool access. We want no limits. We want it cheap. We want it yesterday, but those desires conflict with the reality. OpenAI is describing if a model might cross critical cyber capability. You do not just throw it into every account with unlimited tool use and hope the terms of service carries the day. That would be absurd. So the catch is this: the better Astra is, the less normal its launch may look. That is going to frustrate people. It might make the release feel underwhelming at first. OpenAI could ship a version that is safer, slower, more boxed in, or less agentic than the internal version that created the hype. And then everyone will compare the public product to the rumor and call it nerfed. Maybe it will be, but I think that is where frontier AI is going. The internal model and the public product will become two different stories. The lab version proves what is possible. The shipped version proves what can actually be exposed. That gap is now part of the product. And if you build with AI, you need to understand that gap. Availability matters, price matters, latency matters, tool permissions matter, monitoring matters. The model is only one piece of the system. That is why this Astra news is not just OpenAI might release GPT-6, it is OpenAI is showing us what the next release class looks like. More powerful, more agentic, more restricted, more verified, and probably much weirder than the last model update. So what should you actually do with this? Do not wait around doing nothing because GPT-6 might be close. That is the dumbest possible response. The smart response is to prepare your workflow for a model that can do longer work, because when models get better at long horizon tasks, the people who benefit first are not the people with the most excitement. They are the people with the best task environments, clean repos, fast tests, clear issues, good logs, small reviewable changes, guardrails around tool use, simple ways to compare outputs. That is what makes an agent useful, not a motivational prompt. If your project has no tests, a messy setup, missing docs, secrets scattered around, and a build that only works on your laptop, after 3 magical commands, a stronger agent does not save you. It just fails with more confidence. Or worse, it succeeds in ways you cannot review. That is the uncomfortable developer lesson from Astra. The next model might be powerful enough to do much more of the work, but that means your responsibility moves upward. You become less of a typist and more of a reviewer, task designer, security boundary setter, and verifier. That is a better job. It is also a harder one, because the AI wrote it is not a review. The test passed is closer. The test passed, the diff is small, the reasoning matches the requirement, the logs are clean, and the dangerous tool calls were blocked is the real target. That is where development is going, and Astra is a giant sign pointing in that direction. The people who treat it like a smarter answer machine will waste it. The people who treat it like an agent inside a controlled system will get the leverage. Here's my prediction. Astra will not arrive as one simple moment. There will not be one clean day where everyone wakes up, opens ChatGPT, and the whole future is suddenly available for $20 a month. I think OpenAI will stage this first, more safety and capability reports, then controlled access, then partnerships, then maybe a public model label, whether that is GPT-6, GPT 5.7, or Astra as its own family. The consumer version may feel safer than the rumors. The developer version may be where the real action is. The research version may stay behind heavier gates, and the agent version may matter more than all of them. That is not as satisfying as a release date, but it fits the clues. OpenAI has named Astra. It has published hard outputs from an internal version. It has connected Astra to long horizon scientific reasoning. It has connected Astra to agentic coding and cybersecurity. It has said it cannot rule out critical cyber capabilities. It has slowed some training and kept the largest frontier run on hold. That is a lot of smoke. And this time, some of the smoke is coming from OpenAI's own building. So I would not treat Astra like another fake GPT-6 rumor. I would treat it like an early warning. The next OpenAI model is probably not just coming to answer harder questions, it is coming to do harder work. And the release is getting close enough that the safety system, the product system, and the marketing system are starting to show their shape before the model itself appears. That is the real leak. Not a name, not a date, not a benchmark screenshot. The leak is OpenAI's behavior when a company starts publishing proofs, warning about critical cyber capability, pausing deployment training, and redesigning monitoring around a model that is not public yet. It is telling you something. The next model is not sitting in the far future. It is already here inside the lab. Now, OpenAI has to decide how much of it the rest of us are allowed to touch, and that decision might be the most important AI release of the year.